I'm working with a new client at the moment on developing a healthy relationship with food. Now, as a lot of you know, the way that I approach developing a healthy relationship with food is just treating it as a skill, one big skill. And like all big skills, it's made up of lots and lots of mini skills. And so when clients are moving through my process, they are learning a few mini skills at a time. They're coming in, they're learning what the mini skills are that we're currently focused on, why they're relevant to a healthy relationship with food, and how to build them. And we move through in that step-by-step format, kind of taking the approach of building a puzzle, a couple of pieces at a time. You can't put them all down at the same time. You've got to put them together one at a time. Now, my role in all of that is primarily helping clients to dismantle the resistance that they have for developing the skills. And this is interesting because they'll be like, hey, I want to build these mini skills. I see that would be really helpful for me. Oh, problem though, I also want to do the opposite. For example, if a client is learning about assertiveness, they're like, wow, assertiveness would be really helpful in then me being able to take care of my needs. If I'm taking care of my needs, then I have less urge to emotionally eat. And for a variety of other reasons, yeah, assertiveness sounds great. I really, really want to be assertive and learn that mini skill. Problem though, in the moment, I really want to people please. And I still feel like I'm getting pulled off in that direction. And so my main role is not giving more information about how to build the mini skills. It's not building up motivation to do the mini skills. Actually, the biggest part of my role is understanding what the motivation is with the client to, for example, people please, and dismantling that motivation. Because here's the thing, there'll be very good reasons why to someone it feels like a good idea and the right idea to people please. There's a good reason why they learned the anti-skill, as it were, of people pleasing in the first place. Now, to bring it back to the story I'm telling you about this client that I mentioned at the start of the video, she's having a lot of resistance to building the first few mini skills. She knows what they are, she knows how to build them, she wants to build them, but she has a lot of resistance. That resistance is one of the most common types of resistance, which is the fear and intolerance of uncertainty. She's anxious. She's stuck in that place of, I think it could be helpful. I believe it would be helpful to have these mini skills. I can kind of see it, but I'm afraid to start to engage with them and start to build them because for no other reason than I don't know how it's going to end up for certain. What if this bad thing happens? What if this bad thing happens? What if I gain weight? What if I lose control? What if? Now, it would be very tempting for us to engage with all of the what if questions. But the trouble is you know this if you've struggled with anxiety at any point in your life, those what if questions are never ending. The reason why they're never ending is because in life, nothing is 100% certain. And so those what if questions can just keep coming. Now, this client is actively saying to me, how can I take helpful action if I'm torn between this place of fear and eagerness to make helpful changes for myself? I've got this intense inner conflict going on, so what can I do? Now, while this fear remains, it's going to continue to paralyze her and keep her stuck. And so the approach that I'm going to take with her is what I wanted to ultimately share with you. If you are also someone that finds themselves paralyzed and stuck because of anxiety, and these are the exact tools that I use as well to overcome anxiety and realign back to a state of peace. The first thing that I'm going to be doing with her is helping her to recognize that her problem isn't that bad things could happen or that risk could occur. Her problem is that she cannot tolerate uncertainty. And her problem is that she's trying to control through the means of anxiety, through the means of the what if thinking. She is trying to control the certainty of outcomes. That's what's creating the anxiety, that's what's creating the fear, and that's what's keeping her stuck in the what if thinking rather than taking action, being able to take action. The second thing that we're going to do once she has recognized that this is the nature of her problem, I'm intolerant of uncertainty, is to get her into a state of wanting to be tolerant of uncertainty. And in order to do that, we're going to look at why might someone want to be tolerant of uncertainty? What is the bigger picture impact when someone is perfectly comfortable and embracing of uncertainty? and doesn't feel a need to control outcomes. Well, when someone's not trying to control outcomes and they can tolerate uncertainty, it means that they can take action quite calmly, knowing that future them is going to learn from the experience, no matter what the results or outcomes were. And when someone is doing this repeatedly over and over and over again, and it's the attitude that they take towards life, they are learning so much all of the time. And that, incidentally, is very helpful if we want more control over outcomes and results, and we want to feel peaceful in our quest to get them. Being attached to the learning process rather than outcomes means that we are able to experiment and try things, and it builds self-trust like mad. When someone has an intolerance of uncertainty and they're desperately trying to control outcomes, they're not in an experimental mindset. They're not in a, I'm going to do this because I think it's the best thing, but ultimately we'll see and I'll learn from the experience. They're not in that state, and therefore they're not putting themselves in regular positions where they're able to learn. They're trying to calculate everything ahead of time, right, and run all the different possible scenarios, and fundamentally they are not learning from real life experience, and they are not demonstrating to themselves that they can learn and grow and adapt from real life experience. Therefore, someone that's not tolerating uncertainty and trying to control outcomes is not building trust with themselves. And the more that self-trust erodes, the more someone tries to control outcomes and the more anxious that someone gets, and it becomes this self-fulfilling, spiraling cycle. And sometimes it's helpful to look at two different situations side by side, right? This is from a different client, her experience with overcoming anxiety. So this client was extremely anxious about her work performance. She was spending hours and hours and hours thinking ahead of time, what is my boss going to want to see from me? What kind of paper does she want written? What kind of content does she want made? Thinking about all the things that she could be doing wrong, that she could be improving on. And that made perfect logical sense to her. You know, she was engaging with the anxiety. She was like, but it's really important to me to do a good job at work, so I really do need to worry about this, right? But when we looked at, okay, let's say you spend 10 hours in that mode, thinking everything through ahead of time. What if you took those 10 hours instead and made a bit of content or wrote a paper for your boss, not thinking that it's perfect, but doing a good enough job, handing it to your boss, being like, I'd really like your feedback on this. How could I improve? Then you get the real life feedback of real life experience of what actually happened and what's actually thought about the piece. And then you take that feedback on, you're like, great, I'm going to go and improve it, and then do the same thing again. Now you're getting real life feedback, and you're using that to improve and to learn from, rather than trying to think everything through ahead of time in an anxious state. And so when you look at those two side by side, people could be spending the same amount of time working, but who's going to make the most progress in those 10 hours? Who's actually learning from real life experience? And very importantly, who's going to feel peaceful and calm and confident whilst doing the work, whilst being in the process of the work? And it all comes down to this one fundamental difference. Person A is attached to outcomes, and person B is attached to the learning process. Person A gets stuck and doesn't make good progress. Person B is constantly evolving and outpacing. And so once this anxious client that I'm working with at the moment is in a state where she recognizes that she can't tolerate uncertainty and she wants to be able to tolerate uncertainty, the next question is going to be, how do I learn how to tolerate uncertainty? And the biggest part of that work that we'll likely do is going to be focused just on do and learn, do and learn, do and learn in manageable but meaningful, taking manageable but meaningful steps. Do something, learn from it. Do something, learn from it, just over and over and over and over again. And I'm simplifying for the sake of this video, but hopefully that makes good enough sense. Do that over and over and over again until the doing is no longer a fearful thing, because they're far more focused on, hey, what can I learn from this? And they're making more progress, and they're feeling more peaceful, and they're feeling more trusting in themselves. And eventually she might even get to the point where she's not only not fearful of uncertainty, she actively embraces it and seeks it, because she knows the more uncertain that things are, the more opportunity there is to learn. And that's what she now values. Your problem may not be that you're scared of everything and very anxious. Your anxiety has a purpose, and that is to try to control outcomes. So your problem might be that you're trying to control outcomes. Easier said than done sometimes. I promise you, it's a skill that you can learn, that you can build, that can be honed over time to bring your anxiety down and down and down, and to bring your progress and sense of peace and ability in life going up and up and up and up. Hope this was helpful. See you in the next one.